There's a trend in the spiritual self-help and personal development fields for people getting very confused about the difference between being shamed and feeling shame in response to something. Instead of beating around the bush, let's just get right to it, shall we? Shame is a biological affective reaction that happens when we fear that there's going to be a social consequence, such as separation or punishment for something about us. When I say about us, that could mean anything. Could mean something we think, could mean something we feel, could mean something we want, could mean something that we like, something we don't like, something we do, something we don't do, etc. Perceived social consequence is a very big deal for us because as people, we are relationally dependent as children. And honestly, as adults, we need other people in order to thrive. So when we perceive that there will be a social consequence for something about us, what we do is we unconsciously separate ourselves from that thing about us. We create an internal triangulation dynamic against ourselves, so as to establish closeness with whomever we want closeness with socially. That internal fragmentation that is occurring, or that occurred long ago, is felt as the emotion that we call shame. This is happening even if, and we might even say especially if, we become defensive of whatever we feel shame about. Being a social species, feeling shame is a natural and biological affective reaction. In some cases, we could even say that it's a pro-social response because it lent itself to our survival. When we feel shame, we feel as if something about us is not good and is not in the right, and because of that, we fear we might experience some social consequence. If we want our needs to be met, if we want to survive in society and have a chance at feeling things like love and belonging and contribution and safety, we essentially have one option: to adopt the values and the standards of the society that we are born into, or that we want to be a part of, and to hold ourselves to those standards. Because of this, it can also be said that when we feel shame, we are comparing ourselves to our adopted standards, and we are falling short. And we feel really bad about ourselves because of it. The thing is, we can feel shame in response to all kinds of situations. For example, we can experience it when we see someone else experience a social consequence for something about them that we identify with. We can feel it in response to realizing that we have done something to harm someone else. We can feel it when someone does better at something than we did. We can feel it when we aren't included in something that we want to be included in. We can feel it when we don't act according to our values. We can feel it when someone reacts negatively, emotionally. We can feel it when someone sets a boundary for themselves or a boundary for their own life. We can feel it when someone directly verbally communicates with us about a problem, especially if we're the one causing it. We can feel it when someone gives us a reality check. We can feel it when somebody is trying to help us by showing us what we're doing that's out of alignment and what we need to do, essentially to make it better. We can feel it when we learn information that causes us to realize that we have done something wrong or have made a mistake. What else? We can feel it when someone reflects something about us that they don't like. We can feel it when we see something about ourselves that we don't like. We can feel it when someone expresses disapproval for literally anything that we identify with, etc. And we can also feel it when we're being shamed. To shame someone is to use that natural biological affective reaction of shame as a tool for manipulating and controlling them to suit your interests. For example, let's say that a parent believes that masturbation is a sin, and let's say that they catch their child doing it. That parent wants to control their child's behavior, and so they may immediately act in a way so as to suggest that if the child does not stop masturbating and ever does it again, that parent's love will be withdrawn, and the child faces damnation. What happens is this child immediately triangulates against the part of themselves that has the desire to masturbate and does not do it again. Their behavior is officially controlled. This being said, I need to make you aware of the fact that much about the process of socialization that took place in the past and that takes place today is a process of shaming so as to create the desired behavior that we want. So again, shaming is a control tactic. This is where we need to start to split hairs. When you enter into a relationship, you will run into the experience where something about the other person causes a problem for you. Because there are always consequences, both positive and negative, for anything that a person does or doesn't do. There will be consequences for the person being or not being a certain way, doing or not doing a certain thing. And the same is true in reverse. For example, let's say that you're a politician, and the press and the public judges you by the conduct of the people that you associate with. You may need to have that personal boundary that your partner does not go out to nightclubs and get totally drunk. If your spouse does that or your partner does that, you're going to react negatively. And if they don't stop doing this, the consequence will be that you most likely can't be in that relationship anymore. The politician's partner may feel shame in response to this, but it's not actually fair to say that they are being shamed because they met with a social consequence for doing a certain thing or being a certain way. The politician may want his or her partner to behave in a certain way, but we cannot say that this politician is, quote, controlling their partner. The politician is simply asserting his or her personal truth and boundary. The partner is then in the position to consider that truth and boundary and come back with their own truth and their own boundary. If we consider it controlling for there to be any social consequence for our actions or lack thereof, and expect to be positively reacted to no matter what we do or don't do, we in fact open the door wide for us to abuse other people in relationships. Ironically, in the same way that using shame as a control tactic in relationships can be abusive in relationships. If you want to learn more about this, you can watch my video titled The No Matter What Pattern in Relationships. Feedback in a relationship is essential to a healthy relationship. It's not accurate to say that this is shaming, even if it causes the other person to feel shame. There's a difference between someone trying to manipulate and control you and someone who is communicating that they need you to choose to make a change or stand by something so that they can make a change. I want you to remember that anytime that somebody's manipulating, they feel as if a need can't be met in a direct way, and as a result, they're going through the back door by doing something indirect to try to bring about what they want. It is common for people with high degrees of fragmentation, due to being shamed in the past and therefore a poor self-esteem, to feel shame in response to almost everything. They then mistake that feeling of shame that arises within them for being shamed, and thus they feel manipulated and attacked even when they are not being shamed, they are not being manipulated, and they are not being attacked. The problem is, because of this perception, they can't take reflection and feedback. They accuse other people of shaming them when all they're doing is sharing a truth. And they cause other people to feel like they're walking on broken glass, all of which are contradictory to truth. It's a contradictory force to functional relationships, and it's also a contradictory force to personal growth. People with this kind of trauma around shame are essentially walking around the world believing that no one should ever feel shame, and therefore everything that causes someone to feel shame is bad and wrong. They tend to say things like, "Stop shaming me," or "That's really shaming," every time they feel an emotion that is painful. Remember that things that may cause them to feel shame include things like direct verbal communication about a problem, honesty, any negative emotional reaction, a reality check, someone trying to help them in some way by showing them what they're doing wrong and what they need to do different. Okay, you get the point, right? When we confuse feeling shame with being shamed, we become the kind of person who requires that all people around us never do and never say anything that causes us to feel shame, or else we will put them in the role of the bad guy and us their victim. And the reality is, guess what? It's not possible. It's not possible for anyone to never say or never do anything that causes the sensation of shame to arise within us. Therefore, when we feel shame, we need to own it immediately as a reaction that's occurring within us in response to someone or something else. We then need to do the personal work regarding that shame. And guess what? This is true no matter whether we are simply feeling shame in response to something or we are in fact being shamed. If you want to learn more about this, you can watch my video titled How to Overcome Shame. There's also an entire section of my book, The Anatomy of Loneliness, about shame and what to do about it. Once we have done the personal work regarding our shame and the unhealed pain and personal beliefs that it points to within us, we need to work out, not just assume, what motive the other person has for saying what they said or doing what they did. It may be that they said what they said or did what they did for our benefit, in fact. It may be that what they said or did is for themselves, and that it's a personal plea regarding something they need from us or something that they're desperate to avoid. But let's just say that a person is using shame as a control tactic. It means they want you to do or not do something, be or not be some way. The question is why? And once you have that answer, what is your truth about that? What you need to do is to address the desire of theirs, as well as your truth about it, in a direct way with them. That's the origin of relationship. If someone is completely closed-minded about something on account of them thinking that no matter what, something is bad and wrong, it's a guarantee that there's pain motivating that closed-mindedness. There is something that they're very afraid of and or were very hurt by. And I can promise you that addressing and caretaking that hurt will go a lot further than getting into a war regarding the rightness or wrongness, okayness or badness of something. In an ideal world, a person will see that they're shaming someone. And when they see that, they would consciously see what they are desperate for the other person to be or not be or do or not do. They would then inquire internally as to why. They would go about having the relationship with the other person in a much more direct way instead of a manipulative way. They would face the threat behind their closed-mindedness about certain things being wrong or bad or good and right. Essentially, they would do their own internal work as well regarding why they are shaming other people, in the same way that someone who feels shame would do their own internal work about why they are feeling shame. Where do I need to go with this next? Mutual consideration. Mutual consideration is an essential element of any relationship. Therefore, a person should care how what they are doing and saying makes you feel. If you are with somebody who demonstrates that they don't care how you feel, they simply want you to be how they want you to be and do what they want you to do, then unfortunately you're not in a healthy relationship because you're not being considered. Mutual consideration is an essential part of a healthy relationship, but not to the degree that someone can't be real in the relationship with us, not to the degree that they can't be honest, not to the degree that they can't have an emotional negative reaction, not to the degree that they can't directly communicate with us about a problem, not to the degree that they can't show us what we're doing that isn't working and what we need to do differently, not to the degree that they can't set a boundary for themselves or for their life, not to the degree that they can't share information that causes us to realize that we have done something wrong or have made a mistake, not to the degree that they are walking on eggshells around us so that we never feel the sensation of shame, and certainly not the degree that we only take feedback and reflection if it is positive feedback and positive reflection. So again, to reiterate, the feeling that we call shame is a natural, biological, affective reaction that is occurring when we fear social consequence. To shame someone is to use that natural, biological, affective reaction of shame as a tool for manipulating and controlling someone to suit your own interests. There is a big difference between feeling shame and being shamed. Have a good week. If you liked this video, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and consider sharing this video with your friends. You can also click on the bell icon to be notified of the next time that I post a video. I want to thank you personally for the bravery that you have to step into awareness. I'll see you in the next video.